So the first day, the mission home's in Latvia. So we flew into Latvia, and there were, I think, 12 of us. 4 that were Lithuanian speaking, 2 Latvian, 2 Estonian, and then 4, 5, 6 Russian speakers. And we didn't really know most of the other missionaries, even though we were all in the MTC at the same time. Just because we were separated by language. We'd worked with the Latvians. Their classroom was right next to ours. So we got to the mission home, and then immediately after we dropped off our bags, we went out with a missionary that was serving in Latvia, in Riga, in the capital. And then just went contacting with them on the streets, mostly in English for us. The Latvians could speak Latvian, and the Russians would try and speak Russian. But since there were no Lithuanians in Latvia, we were just trying to speak English. And so that was a little intimidating, just being one thrust into this country that barely knew existed, let alone knew anything about, and then trying to talk to people about the gospel and the Book of Mormon. But actually, the missionary I was with had a lesson set up with someone that he had found on the street a few days before. And so then, and he was a younger, probably in his teens, like 16, 18 or something. So he spoke decent English, and so we were teaching him in English so that I could say something. And so it was a nice kind of introduction to be able to say whatever I felt like I needed to say without the barrier of language. Because it was hard enough when I could say what I wanted. But we ended up extending a baptismal commitment, which he accepted, but then I went to Lithuania the next day, so I never knew what happened, but then I ended up talking to the missionary after, and he said the kid kind of just dropped off the face of the earth after our little lesson. But, it was a powerful experience just being able to extend the commitment and just realize that I could ask people to do something that big and life-changing, even if they either didn't end up doing it or didn't have that desire, but that I could give them that opportunity. And then, so the next morning, we got on a bus, drove to Lithuania. It's like a 4 or 5 hour bus ride. And so then we met our trainers at a bus stop in Vilnius, in the capital. And that was where my first area was. And then after that, dropped our bags off at the apartment, and then just went out. Contacted on the street a little bit, and then went to some apartments that were close to where we lived and started knocking on doors. And so the first door I knock on, this older guy answers, and he was on the phone, and it didn't look like he was wearing pants at the time. But he told us, he just puts his hand up and it's like, oh, wait a second. So then he goes back inside, and then he comes back out. And so he was on the first floor of the building. And so he steps outside his door, puts a cigarette in his mouth and lights it, and then we walk out to the porch. And so then we're talking with him, and he'd been drinking a little bit, which was fairly common for most of the country. And he started asking where we were from. I told him I was from Idaho. Then he asked me what the capital of Idaho was, and I told him it was Boise. And then he told me that I was wrong, and that the capital of Idaho was Phoenix. And I was like, no, that's Arizona. It's like, no. I'm right. I'm like, I mean, I'm from there, but it's okay. And then we just had this like long kind of pointless conversation about what the capital of Idaho was. And then someone went into his apartment, and he leans over to me and my companion and is like, that guy that just walked in, he just got back from Russia, and he has some drugs if you want those. And so my companion was like, no, we're okay. Like, we don't do that sort of thing. I was like, well, if you change your mind, like, let me know. And then, so then my companion realized that this conversation wasn't really going anywhere productive. So he turned to him and was like, we have to go, and we'll see you later, have a good day. And the guy's like, where's your taxi? Like, I don't see a taxi here. Like, where do you have to go? I'm like, no, like, we just have to go. Like, we have somewhere else we need to be. It's like, okay, well, we'll say goodbye like men. And then he stood up and gave us a handshake, and then brought us in, and then gave us like the pat hug on the back. And then we went our way, and he went back into his apartment, and that was like the first real conversation I had with someone in Lithuania. I mean, it was great. Like, just that kind of exposed right off the bat to this different mindset, and just there's all sorts of different people in the world, and that people will talk to you. I mean, sometimes they won't really want to talk about what you want to talk about, but even people that do things that we don't agree with, or might seem like it would make them a bad person, they're still good people, still just everyday sort of individuals trying to do the best they can, and that as long as we interact with them in a positive, good way, that they can come away having a better view of the church, and ideally come a little bit closer to God and to Christ through our interactions, even if that interaction is just talking to them about what the capital of Idaho is.